course, tomorrow is Memorial Day. One of the things that I thought about, I wanted to do a little bit of research just to find out some things which I didn't know. Of course, everyone does know that Memorial Day is to honor those who have given their lives in service of our country. Now, does anybody know at what time or what year Memorial Day was first established? If you were in the first service, you cannot answer. Okay? Anybody? It was actually right after the Civil War. It was originally called the Day of Remembrance. That's the point where they would lay the flowers on the graves of the fallen Civil War veterans, mainly. It was established at that time by a John Alexander Logan. He was a general in the South. On Memorial Day, one of the things that's very interesting is that you fly the flag at half-mast until noon. Then after that, it goes up full ways. I don't know if any of you know, but the red poppies flower is actually the Memorial Day flower. And I know all of you have heard, taps is usually played during this time on Memorial Day. I'm sorry, it was first called Decoration Day. And Heidi's very happy with this bit of trivia, is that actually New York State was the first state to recognize Memorial Day, since she's from New York. Interesting fact is that the South refused to honor Memorial Day, at least until World War I. A lot of states in the South had their own Memorial Day for their Confederate soldiers, but they wouldn't signify, that it was a national holiday. It actually did become a national holiday in 1971, a federal holiday at that time. So it hasn't been very long. Well, long for some of you because you weren't born then, but for us, it hasn't been that long. One of the things that I thought about is that, and many of you can relate, Joel probably can't, as you get older, you realize that life is short. If you're young, you don't recognize that. I can remember many years ago, we used to ride the horse and buggy back and forth to school. Many years ago, in 1970, my dad had passed away in 1970. I was 15, but before he had done that, it just seemed as though he was so old. He was 58. It just seemed like he was just ancient. And I can still remember that. I can still remember my mom was 13 years younger than my dad, and still she was 45. It's like, when, it's like you should be in crutches, you should be in a wheelchair. I mean, all this stuff, and when you're young, you just don't even think that. You don't even think that that is a young age. But as you get older, and as I've gotten older, I've realized that those ages aren't really that old. Though the young people would disagree with me for obvious reasons. I think that sometimes when we look at Memorial Day, a lot of times we have someone in mind. Maybe it is, a relative or an ancestor of ours that has died in a war. Maybe a parent, maybe a great uncle and uncle. My mom had 11 in her family, which back then that they usually had much larger families. And she was born in 1925. And she, one of the things is that she came from a very, very large family. I actually have a cousin that's probably, because my mom was one of the younger ones, I have a cousin that is actually in her 70s now. So she's much older. And her husband was actually fought in Iwo Jima during World War II. He was a Marine. He went into the island with over 200 people in his company. And there were only 2 that survived out of that. So, this is a time that we really do remember those who have fallen. But, unfortunately for now, many times, I know kids are always excited for Memorial Day because usually that means school's over. But we've gotten to that point where that's what we think about. That Memorial is the start of the summer, yay, yay, or is the first day to officially camp, And while there's nothing wrong with that, I don't want to criticize anybody for any thoughts like that. I think we're all here kind of relieved that hopefully there will be no more snow. That is no guarantee, okay? The first summer we came here in this region, many years ago, on July 4th, I woke up to 4 inches of snow outside my house. So that was a unique way to celebrate the 4th of July, let me tell you. But one of the things that we're going to do here is that, this is not going to be a political speech. I'm not going to run for president. I have not put my head in for that. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of switch gears, and we're going to look at slightly different. We celebrate Memorial Day because of the war veterans, but I kind of want us to look at something like a Christian Memorial Day. How are we going to be remembered? What are we going to do? How are we going to live our lives? I think it's important as believers to look back and be very introspective about who we are and what we're going to do with our life. At the end of it, we're going to show a real tiny video. But just to start off, we live in a very consumer-driven society. We learned this from a lot of different ways. What you have, your possessions, does that make you happy? A lot of times, while we, in a nutshell, do not believe that, sometimes we like to acquire things, okay, and get things and things, thinking that that will give us satisfaction. And that will help us be happy inside. In the 1970s and 80s, not that I was around during that time, okay, all right? 1970s and 80s, I read it in an ancient history book, okay? There was a theme. All you need is more. And that really was it. Everybody was getting things and getting things and getting things. And I think sometimes now we even do the same thing. I remember a long time ago in which the BlackBerry phone was the best. Long, long ago. But now it's like they want others. iPhones. iPhone what? 1, 2, I don't know how many. 4 now. Now they want that. The Android's got to have the Android platform. It's got to have this, got to have that. It's got to have a phone that scratches my back. Basically, we're looking for things that will just make us feel better about ourselves. But I think that it's easy for us as believers to really get caught up in that cultural, and this is cultural. If you were to go to the Middle East, or you were to go to Southeast Asia or Africa, what we have is so much far in abundance compared to what others have. Okay? And we were talked about the turmoil that happened in Egypt, how that the average person lives on like $2 a week. Okay? In some areas of the world, $120 is what they get paid for the whole year. Okay? So it's a huge difference comparing the two. But it's easy for us as Americans to get caught up on this. And we can get caught up in the atmosphere, the attitude that we need that latest thing. We need that new gadget. We need that new game system. We need the Wii system. It has the controllers. Now they have the other one that Microsoft has. You're the controller. Okay? So we need that now. And pretty soon, I don't know what's going to happen. But we look at that. But the reality is, and I think some of the songs that we sing, now, Ferris Lord Jesus is probably, along with And Can It Be, is my two most favorite hymns. What we really need is Jesus. And we need him to fulfill the needs, the deep needs of our life. He addresses those root issues inside us that makes us who we are. And we need him. But sometimes it is very, very easy to overlook the great gift of Christ, the great gift of Jesus to us. And we undervalue him, and we overlook him, because he is all we need. There is nothing else. Jesus and Jesus only. You know, one of the things in Colossae, and a little bit later we're going to turn to Colossians. You don't have to do it, but if you're one of those people that has to be right here all the time, you can do that. We'll be referring to that a little bit later. In Colossians, the people of Colossae were told that Jesus, you know, he was a good start. But there were more things needed that they needed to know in order to be completely spiritually satisfied. You need more, something else. But those false teachers were wrong. Now, Colossians, if you're a student of the Word, you'll realize that Colossians and Ephesians are very similar. They go with the same themes, and they theorize that perhaps the Apostle Paul wrote those about the same time. Ephesians is a little different in the sense that it doesn't really address any individual people like Colossians does. So they believe that Ephesians was probably a letter that Paul intended to be circulated around people around the area. So it wasn't intended for that, but Colossians is different. It was written to a group of people who had an issue. And the issue is that they wanted to add something to the gospel, to Jesus, in order to be spiritually strong. Jesus meets our needs, and he meets our desires in many, many different ways. You have everything you need in Christ. Now we're going to do a few exercises. Okay? No jumping jacks, no sit-ups, nothing like that. But throughout the time, I'm going to be asking you to bow your head and close your eyes and just think about some things we're talking about. Because I think sometimes when we're living our lives, we get so caught up in other things. You know, we're in church and we see someone across there doing weird things with their hand. You know, and you're watching them instead of paying attention. You know, or like when you're, we have 4 kids. Of course, they all live there, but it seems that way. But we have 4 kids and grandkids and noise and things. It's really very, very difficult for us to break away and just think about Christ. You know, the car is great because, unless you had the radio on full blast, you turn that radio off. It's a perfect time to spend some quality time in prayer and seeking God's face. So we're going to do some things, some spiritual exercises today, just to help us to focus on things so that we get our hearts, where they should be. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and ask you just to go ahead and bow your heads and close your eyes. And I just want you to think, what are the desires of your heart? What is it that you want God to do for you? What is it that you want? What kind of person do you want to be? Just look at yourself and say, God, there's a saying, be all you can be. Lord, I want to be all that you want me to be. Okay. Just a moment more. Okay, you raise up.